a digital euro will actually make it more popular outside the EU borders?
Could well be, but for that, and maybe we circle back to the Atlantic Council purpose and the transatlantic relationship. And what the Council has always aimed at and for, this has to be coordinated with others. We cannot, a digital currency is borderless. It shouldn't be borderline, and it should certainly cross the line, which is why I think it should be regulated and properly supervised. But it can facilitate cross-border payments, big way, which is why between the United States authorities, the European authorities, and others beyond that, we need to compare notes. We need to check what the imperatives are. We need to understand what is the ideal supervision and regulatory mechanism so that we have something that, systems and currencies in digital form that can talk to each other, even at retail level, and certainly more so.
I just tweeted about it earlier today. You look back at the past 2 to 3 months, you had BlackRock enter the market. You had news of Charles Schwab, Citadel, and Fidelity they're working on a crypto exchange. NASDAQ also came out and said they're launching crypto custody. It's amazing what's happening. I got into the market in 2016, and I couldn't even imagine these big names getting into the asset class. What are your thoughts seeing it? And I know you're talking to some of these folks, and the Cowans of the world and so forth. What are your thoughts on the recent surge of these institutional investors coming in?
Well, I would say a few things. It's not surprising because we're talking to these folks and or their peers on a daily basis, and we're seeing the migrations that large asset managers are making in the space. I think what's critical is that you actually are seeing some of these household names put their foot down and say we are building out products and services. You've got the BlackRocks, you've got the Wisdom Trees, and others who are just massive asset managers who are moving deliberately into the space, and it can only be credentializing. I think it's going to have a very positive impact, frankly, on the regulators, because those organizations have the ear of the regulators, and they're going to force some regulation to come through, which I think is going to be great. I think one of the biggest impediments right now to growth in this industry is the lack of regulatory clarity. And we've made great strides, I will say, if I think back over the last 6 to 12 months, and when I look forward, not only here in the US, but the G20 Financial Stability Board, you've got the EU initiatives around MiCA, you've seen legislation being introduced in Ukraine, South Korea, Bahrain, Brazil, all within the last couple of months. And so I think we're getting consistent progress. Can't happen fast enough as far as I'm concerned, but it's going to be, I think, really helpful not only for sell-side firms like ours to understand what the rules of the road are, but it's also going to remove one of the biggest obstacles for institutions to come and invest into the space. And that's really when you're going to see this waterfall of demand.
What is Swift Go, and why is now the best time to roll it out?
Yes, so you just mentioned it. The low-value payment space is really skyrocketing, and banks are actually uniquely positioned to capitalize on this growth. Since the beginning of the year, I'm super happy to announce that we've tripled the number of banks signing SwiftGo. So we went from 120 to now more than 400 banks. More importantly, the solution actually covers all the currencies in the world. All you need is a clearing bank so that you can start actually servicing customers in their local and non-local currency. And those payments arrive for 87% of them in 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
3 minutes.
JP Morgan is aligning its Expedite product with Swift Go to make it even easier for clients to implement a low-value cross-border payment offering.
It's a new solution that we've launched at Cybos, and Expedite Remit focuses on consumer-to-consumer payments. So what we're trying to do is to help banks capture and retain these consumer-to-consumer flows, which, as I mentioned, they had sort of stepped away from that market. And if you look at banks, they have largely ceded that space to fintechs and money service businesses. And the fintechs and money service bureaus showed them that this can actually be a big business And by the way, most of those firms use bank rails in the back end. So then banks have started focusing on low value payments. What we are trying to do is to help them settle real time where possible with full principal protection and upfront costs. And if you add all types of consumer payments, it can be more than $4 trillion. So it's a huge market and it's growing at double-digit pace. So that's why everyone is suddenly interested in it. And so we said we'll come together and let's, join forces. So think about where migrant workers send their money or expat workers send their money. India, China, Philippines, Mexico, those are the big corridors across the world. So we're building those out first. So we cover about 40% now. 70% of all the flows will be covered next year. And then after that, 90%. So that's our roadmap.
I was talking to my man, Fred, and my boy Anthony about crypto and Bitcoin, yesterday, just to be prepped for this conversation, and not about the specifics of alternate currencies, which is like AC, which is like Tesla, which is like, but this is how my mind just goes on these like riffs right here. But Jack Dorsey decentralized Twitter 2 months before it really hit because he was talking to the Bitcoin guys. And these are guys that really have a perspective on what the true liberation of America and humanity will be. These guys, a lot of specifically these guys, but a lot of the tech guys were able to use the new highways, the new information highways, and create the next frontier of our